I've got a Excelling it in Webby, what I'm going to talk about. Thank you for giving me a chance to come out again. By the way, there'll be a Let's Speak BO next, is it Tuesday, I believe, Heather, that I'll be doing a presentation. So keep that.
Correct, yes.
And then at IBIS, I can't help but recommend you try to get out to the IBIS conference. I've been going 20 some years. I'll be doing a number of presentations. You get a unique opportunity. I'll be doing a 4-2 presentations and 4-3, particularly in the area of charting. So I'm, going to give you some great content as we always get with that, which makes it really nice for us as well. So just to kind of let you know kind of where we're at. So the reason I wanted to do another presentation on the Excel as a data provider is I'm seeing a lot of people run into problems with this. I'll be out teaching a class. I'll have students come back that were in a prior class or worked a while. It's at a user group meeting or virtual, but as it is now. And they keep running into issues with Excel files. And the issue is updating the Excel files. So as part of my normal presentation in the normal window at 45 minutes or so, I would give you some additional topics. So there are other uses for Excel, using it as a filter file, using it as a bridge file where you have incompatible objects, which now gets taken care of in 4.2 with local variables being mergeable. But what I'm going to concentrate specifically on is just Excel as a data provider, because it's such a popular way of getting data in that doesn't already exist in your underlying database. You want to pull it in, maybe it's projections or other information you don't have, and you want to supplement what's there, okay? So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Excel in the early days, full client days was doable, and Webby, in earlier versions of Webby, it was not. And then you eventually evolved into rich client, and rich client was the only way you could get Excel. Then eventually with I got to remember which version even now that it came in at 4.1, I believe, where we can read Excel files directly. Now text files fall into that as well. So let's talk a little bit about Excel and what we can do. So what I'm going to do is jump right out, and I'll leave my one slide up there. Not that we're going to look at it any, but let's get out there and let's get into the tool. And let's talk about Excel. First order of business, using Excel files. There's a lot of misconceptions about it. Oh, I add a new query and I go out and grab the Excel file. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to bring in your other data providers, your Excel files or your text files. They have to be imported into the Launchpad. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to access them. So it's like a multi-step process. And let's kind of outline what you need to do, kind of a checklist as we go in here live. Number one thing you need to do is get your Excel files all ordered, set up. Typically, your Excel files are nothing but data silos. Title data, left to right, all the way across. You can bring in hundreds of rows, thousands of rows, large numbers. I've got customers bringing in hundreds of thousands of rows and success with them as well. The problem is you got to make sure they're cleaned up. That it's only title data all the way down so that your Excel files are clean. It's like I got to put it. Secondly, you have to think about, where do I put those Excel files? So, well, that's no big deal. I go to the Documents tab on the left side here, okay? Let it come up. And what I do with the files at this point is I find a folder to put it in. Ah, wait a minute. If I put it in under My Documents, under My Favorite subcategory, I have an interesting dilemma. I can't share this Excel file with somebody else. Now, all of a sudden, life gets more complicated. So you need to think about, when you're bringing in Excel as data providers and you work in a shared environment with other users that want to use the same Excel file, that you put it in a place they can. Well, it's not going to happen under My Documents. If you go to public folders, you might want to put a folder out there called Excel or something like that. I know one of my clients down in Cleveland has an ad hoc folder in the public domain that anybody can put anything in that ad hoc file, including Excel files, but it's free for all, and take your chances on it. So you have to think about this up front, because you don't want to be having each individual user get a copy from you. They use it locally under My Documents as well, but then they start changing it, and they change it different from how you change it, and suddenly all of your Excel files are out of sync. So you got to make sure you manage it as well. Another big problem people run into. Notice my folder structure under My Favorites. I did a no-no. We have a lot of Webby documents, Excel files, and other stuff that's out there, shared elements and the like. They're all out here at the root level, but you'll notice I have multiple Excel files, and I have one called eFashion that we're going to use. Well, eFashion exists here. If you go to my demo documents folder, I don't remember if I have one in there or not. Yes, I do. There's but a different one, but it could have been eFashion in there. I go to my reporting folder, and there it is again. you need to make sure you manage those Excel files at the local level also, and not have multiple copies. But you come in a week or two from now and you go in to edit it, and you get lost in the folder structure, not realizing that that doesn't necessarily tell you where it's being used, and you have an issue. So what you got to do, of course, is get it under control and say, all right, well, we'll set up an Excel subfolder. A lot of people like my suggestion. They come up with variations, and they'll manage all their local Excel files under my documents, or set up a public folder to put it out there, providing they have admin rights to do it as well. Okay. So got Excel now. You need to do the import. That's the key. And importing is very easy. You highlight whatever folder or subfolder you want it in. Up under new, we got new local document. Come in. And it's the typical Microsoft-like, let's bring something in. We'll choose the file. It remembers where I had it last. I have it out on my local drive out here as efashion.xlsx. I would suggest you also try to keep your Excel files as XLSX files and not XLS. I've run into issues under the different service packs in 4.2 with customers where it throws an error on it. It gets lost. It has an issue with it, one type or another. So I just stick with XLSX, okay? And remember, this file is created outside of Webby. You do not create it anywhere within the BI Launchpad. It's created external, and you might make a little note. It's also updated initially external. So you put it out there as eFashion, you use it, you got to go back out and re-import it. Well, we'll talk about how to re-import it. But changes were made in between, and you have to go back and bring it back in again, all right? And since we got it local as well, we're in good shape here. So bring in the XLSX file down in the right-hand corner is an add for this one, for me to add it in. And now if you look under Excel, there it is, okay? So now that I've got the Excel file here, I know that I've also got it at my favorites. It's sitting in reporting. So I've got a very interesting dilemma, something that I would not want to do. We do this on purpose as part of my presentation to highlight what the pitfalls can be. A lot of people will try to physically open it up and update it here. Nope, you don't do that. Everything is created external, everything is updated external, and you import it if it's new, but we're going to show you how you do it when it's already exists. And this is an organized replace that you use. Very different scenario for the two. Very, very different when you do this process. And by the way, I know I'm going to get this question later on, so we'll cut it off at the pass. It would be nice to schedule some type of report that you've created with the Excel file, so it automatically does the import and updates corresponding under the cover stuff that it needs to do inside the Launchpad. There is none. I've asked Samuel Polachek about it before, and they said our hopes are in 4.3 world down the road that we'll have some capability there later. So just keep that in mind as well. So there's my Excel file. I'm ready to use it. So what do? Well, we do our standard. I'm coming in to create a Webby document. As you may or may not remember, if you've been through my training, you'll never forget it. You've got home and documents. Those are your two starting points. Home if it's new, documents if it exists. There you go. We're going to go home. As you all know, you're all familiar with this, hopefully. We'll create our new request. My infamous blue-gray screen to nowhere, the way it comes up, we'll select our new option, and here you go. Now, I'm in SP7 I'm running right now, and I believe it was SP6 where text now showed up automatically, in addition to Excel, and so on down the line, as you see right there. So I'm going to pick Excel. Now, at this point, normally I would hope that you have already taken care of the logistics of importing it, so you can manage it, get it in the right folder or subfolder, and get it all set up. What if you didn't? Can I stop here? You absolutely can. I've done it many times in the class environment where I have a little more time, is I would actually go out to documents and import it new, come back in here, and then pick my Excel option that way. But try to get all that organization done up front so you don't overlook anything. You get the Excel file in there correctly, and you're good to go. So it says open a document from the server. Okay, it's defaulting to my favorites. It will show you by default any and all Excel files in that folder. Okay, I want to go to the Excel folder for mine. And there's my eFashion that I want. And I want to open that one up. Now, as you will see, we don't get a query panel that comes up. I call it the pseudo query panel. It's evolved over the years. You know, I'm used to the old original query panel from desktop that migrated across the 3 world and the 4.1 and the 4.2, and here we are. And you could almost think of this as being like a query in a way. So it's the custom data provider window, CDP. Many of you old timers might remember when it was called PDP, personal data provider. Call it what you want. It's basically, I'm bringing in my Excel file. If you have multiple sheets, no problem. What you'll have to remember is you have to add another query each time and reselect Excel and select a different sheet to literally separate out a spreadsheet with multiple sheets into individual queries. My customers do it all the time. I've got customers of mine down in Fifth Third Bank in Cincinnati. I've got people down there bringing in 12, 14, 16 Excel files. And believe it or not, 0 queries from the universe. They do all Excel reporting, but Webby makes it a lot easier to pull it all together. There's no formal query filters within Excel. We made a request, and I've talked with Samuel before on this, and maybe in the 4.3 world, it would be nice if there was a filter capability. I've heard some rumors we might see that. Wouldn't it be nice to filter out here? If not, you just do it within the report viewer window with local filters, and you have a full range of things you can do as well. Notice first row contains column names. Make sure you have title data, title data, title data, left to right, all the way across. We are good to go. And this is what I would call the pseudo query panel. Kind of resembles it. It's got your results objects, data preview, obviously missing. Where is the query filter section? We don't have it. All right, so you could go back to the Excel file and do the filtering there, but you might want all of the data in the Excel file and use local filters to divide it up. So it gives you some information. You can change the query. In fact, my recommendation is always to go down here. So because I'm running the HTML version at the query panel level, I cannot double click into the query tab to rename it. I would have to do a right click rename to do that. Only at the query panel level. You get other good advantages of HTML, so that's a good thing to know. And I might want to call it Excel. Something like that. And we got our Excel file. Okay, so that's good for us. Kick in there for me. We'll do an OK on it. All right. And now we're ready to run it. Let me get my viewer window out of the way here for you. Sorry about that. So I run the query. And up comes my report. I didn't bother to do a preview, which probably would have been a good thing. But the data comes up, and you look at it, and look how it's laid out on the left, quarter, month, projected revenue, and your variables and references as well, the reference cells. But something happened, and you look at it and say, wait a minute. I'm bringing in quarterly data. Now, in real life, it would have been potentially year, quarter, month, and so on. To make it easier for us to follow the pieces as we put them together, we always try to simplify, so we just did quarter, month. It really makes it much more flexible for us doing different examples. So you look at it and say, now, wait a minute, where did month come up with the number 6 or 15 or 24 or 33? Part of it, you look over here and say, well, 6 would be months 1, 2, 3 would add up to 6. 4, 5, 6 would be 15. Oh, that would mean it summed it up. Lo and behold, we look over at the left side in the available objects window, and of course, month was brought in as a measure. Now, why did that happen? When Webby brings in Excel files, as you add queries into your document, and you open it up like we just did, it has to make a decision for every column. Is it a dimension or a measure? It's kind of been the roadmap for years. So in this case, it came to quarter and said, well, that's a gimme. Has to be a dimension because it's got a Q and a number. Then it comes along the month and it says, oh, you let me off easy. Let me off easy. All right, it's a number, so I'm just going to sum it up. Less work for me. Instead of putting out 3 rows, I put out 1. Now, the first thought that always comes up with a lot of users is, oh, geez, now I got to go back to outside of Webby, go back to the Excel file, physically open it up in Excel, fix it there to convert it over to character from number, and do all of that. No, you don't. Webby said, we'll give you one-stop shopping. I'll give you one place to fix the problem. So we go back to the query panel. I just taught a class and had a student refer to these as the barrels. I've never heard that before, but the Dataprovider liked the term barrels for it. I thought that was kind of cute. If that helps you remember what the Dataprovider window is, great. And if you notice, if I click on month or any of these objects here, you notice how it gives me the ability to change things. And before you ask that question, can't do that either in a regular query on a universe. You can't dynamically decide to change it. That's for variables and formulas come in for that part of it. So it made it a measure, but knowing that, I'm going to say, no. We got to fix this problem, okay? So we fix it, and we could have done the data preview refresh down here, which you normally would have done, but it still would have tricked you because you'd have seen all 4 quarters and all that, and then you would have saw how it did the consolidation as it should up there as well. So we do a run query. And lo and behold, there's all my data showing up, and now my Excel file is accessible like anything else. And I like naming my query tabs when we were back at the query panel level to match that particular data provider source being Excel. I had more than one Excel file, getting with naming conventions. Remember your characters, numbers, and spaces, no special characters for query or report tabs. You run into issues as well. Well, so far, so good. You said, well, that was easy. I brought it in. I had no problem. I could bring in other Excel files. But now something happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to it. I'm going to go out to the operating system, go out to And I'm going to find that file on my drive that has the Excel file in it. And it's in a file called stoplights. Many of my presentations, you might have seen my dynamic reporting where we insert stoplights to help spice it up. I use that stoplight folder as kind of a catch-all. I open it up, and there's my efashion.xls. Let's go in and fix it. Remember, we're outside of Webby. Webby's still open. The Webby session's still open. And I'm going out directly via Excel to this file. Okay. I'm going to show you what happens when we change the data. When you look at the Excel file, you have to look at it two ways from a change perspective. Number one, just merely updating what's there. In other words, adding more rows of data, eliminating rows of data, maybe updating specific values that were in the Excel file itself, but no formal structural change, no additional columns, no moving columns around or something like that. So what I'm going to do is take this next column over here, put it over a little bit, stretch it out a little bit. Oh, it's this one I want. I'm going to widen this one up. And what we're going to do is we have projected month, projected revenue, and I'm just going to put the word actual in there for just actual data. And for simplicity's sake, we're making a structural change by design to make it real simple. 1, 2, 3. You see, I'm just putting in a different value. And I'm physically making a change to the data itself. I'm not just updating or adding more rows of data. I'm physically changing what is there. And I do a file save as. Okay, and I go into my save as window and update it. And we'll just save it. Actually, just save it as is. We'll do it right here. We'll close it all out and make sure that it updates it correctly for me. And now my Excel file has now been updated as of today. And now the Excel SX file is ready to go. Now I have an interesting problem. I go back to Webby. And this is where it's so important that you keep tabs. Where am I? What am I doing? How many windows have I got open? How am I managing all of this? Because you're going to have other queries from universes mixed in there as well. Okay. So there's the updated report. Okay. But it's not updated. The Excel file has been updated external. But if I go to my documents tab here, okay, this no longer matches what I imported. So the typical mistake you make is say, well, I'll just highlight this one and I'll just go over the top and replace it, something like that. Well, no, you can't do that. You only do that new import functionality when it's a brand new file. But this one already exists, and I've already gone outside and updated it. So sitting external to Webby is that Excel file we just updated. And then here's the eFashion one in here. What you do in this particular case is the good old organize button. Okay. Oop, got to get over here a little bit. Let me get this right. There's an organize button down here. Now, when the 4.1 release first came out and it had Excel functionality, I won't forget that. One of the first problems I ran into was you did not have the ability to update the Excel file. I remember calling the support people in France and talking with our developer friends, said, oh, we didn't give that any thought, updating. So the way they did it was they took the organize button, all right, and instead of a cut, copy, paste, or replace or whatever, the Windows 7 piece, they gave us an option called replace file. This is specifically used to bring back in, to re-import is a good way to remember it. So if I want to do a replace file, okay, it says, okay, you want to replace it, show me where it is. Show me outside where it is so I can go get it. It says, oh, this one right here, okay? Pointing to the same file. You could rename or save it under a different name and replace it with the second, third, and fourth. It gets very confusing later on when you start looking at iterations of it and which one is which for that. Okay. So it comes back to the window here. And there's a replace in the right-hand corner here that I'm going to do. It says it already exists. Now, here's where I run into problems with XLS files. It'll throw a format error on this one. It happened a number of times with customers, but it's telling us, hey, listen, do you want to continue? Yep. Yes, I do. Wait a minute. Let me do this first. Let me make sure it brings in. Oh, it did already. I'm sorry. I didn't even notice how quick it was. It usually runs a little slower. This, what you are now you're doing is you're doing a form of an update. You've re-imported it and replaced. So that's an organize it. You only use the import once when it's new. If you scrap everything, it would be new again. You use the organize replace over and over and over as you update it. So now it's been updated, but now this matches what's outside of the Launchpad. The document itself up here doesn't match that because the data is now different. So if you look at it here, we haven't refreshed it yet, and you don't want to. Here's where the dilemma comes in. You re-imported it with an organized replace. You checked everything out. You're ready to take the report. And the natural tendency is to hit the refresh arrows. Oh, no. And here's where there's a split in the road. If all you did was update the data, add more rows of data, update the specific columns that are there, no physical structural change at all, I can go up here right now, hit the refresh with the arrows. It will update the Excel file in conjunction with whatever else is in that document, any other queries, and it'll be fine. But if you make a structural change, you will break the report. I always get called up after they do this. They refresh it and then they save it, bring it back up, and there's an error on it because it errored out. So what do you have to do when you're doing an organized replace? Not when it's new, but to do the organized replace that we've already done. You need to do number one steps, go back to the query panel. I'll always remember that as the barrels now for one of my recent students, okay? And you go down into the edit settings button down here, where it says edit settings. You click on that, okay? And let's get it to, make sure I got it in the right spot here. Wanted to update it. So I come over to here, and I've got my eFashion all set up into here. Went okay on it. And now it updated it successfully. There it is. There's my actual data. Okay, automatically took care of it. Had I not gone back and done that, I promise you it will corrupt the report. Now, there's actual data. Now, of course, I always get this question. I was doing a presentation yesterday and a student asked, well, you added something new in after you ran the query the first time. How come it's not in the report? Well, that's the age-old dilemma with Webby. When you add something to what's already there, it brings it along for available objects, but doesn't put it in. So we'll drag the actual data in there. And away we go. Now, I wouldn't have to bother at all with that, editing the query to go back to the edit button there for anything else. I had to do it for Excel only if we made a physical change. So I make it a rule. Anytime I've done an organized replace and I have brought in an Excel file like you see right here, rather than take a chance, I just automatically go back to the query panel. It's too easy to screw it up. Okay. I come into here, edit the settings, okay, and I do my OK. And the changes are picked up along the way, and you are good to go. So then I could bring in my queries from other sources as well and do things with it accordingly. So now it exists. It's inside the document. Of course, its data source that it's now using is the one external, and you can find it in here. When you go back in, it'll tell you exactly where you have that Excel file located that you're bringing in. So if you have it out there multiple times, which one did I use for this document? That can often be handy to go out and look and see the tree. It'll map out exactly where you pulled it from to let you know. So those are little things like that that can help you in the process. So you need to be careful. Excel files are an awesome way of getting in data that you don't already have. And it's common. People said, well, we don't do Excel files. You know, we don't do it. It's funny, in the earlier days with Tableau out there, Tableau would, as many of you probably do, bring in Excel as a primary data source. And I have customer sites that said, well, we don't allow Excel in Webby. He said, do you allow it with Tableau? Oh, yeah. I said, well, what's the difference? Same data. Oh, yeah, but not understanding the process of bringing in an Excel file as a data provider and then updating the Excel file correctly. You import when it's new, you organize, replace when it's been updated external to bring it back in. And again, you saw we had to make a couple little adjustments where Webby in its processing of the Excel files, it went left column to right, dimension or measure all the way across, make the corresponding changes as well. I wish I had filter capability. I don't. So what do? In the report viewer level, you just use a local filter, drop it in that way with the local filter, and it will take care of your problem. All right, questions. I know there's some out there. That I'm going to wrap up with that.
We actually have no open questions at this time, Michael.
Wow. Well, I'm on time, aren't I?
You're very thorough today. Yeah, that's great.
Well, if they get any questions, you can always later, let me just pop up so they have my contact info real quick, if you don't mind. If they want to get a hold of me, yeah, with any questions or whatever, there's my email address right here. So you see that. Don't forget, we got Let's Speak BO next week, Tuesday. I'd love to have you there. Heather's working on a nice job getting that set up for me. And I can't stress enough the importance of getting out to IBIS. It's an incredible conference. with all that I've gone through. There's so much good content. And if you want to see a real good one on 4.3 charts, let me know, because get signed up for the conference. It can be live or virtual. If you come out live, I'll be leading the morning runs or walks. So just to let you know in advance.